Hey, deserving listeners. So this is a bit unusual that I'm adding an intro at the beginning of this episode. I have already watched this fight between Jimmy and Chelsea. I actually watched it last night until late in the evening. I reacted to it. I recorded all of it. This morning, I spent all day editing all of that, and I found that the whole fight actually takes up 6 episodes of mine. Some of the episodes are more typical length, 20 minutes-ish, but some of the episodes are much longer than that. So you might think, wow, why would Kirk talk for so long about one scene on this show? Kirk must have been yammering a lot, and I feel weird talking to myself in the third person. Third person, right? Anyway, but yeah, I did talk a lot, but I didn't go on any tangents. What I decided to do early as I was watching this was to really use this opportunity to go a little further into things that I have talked about briefly before in these reaction videos. Because I think that this show and this scene and this third fight between this couple provides an excellent opportunity to show what I talk about often, not only as a YouTuber, but as a professor and as a therapist and as a supervisor and as an author. And as a friend, I talk with people about this in my personal life. I bother people with it all the time because I'm very passionate about this, and you'll see that as I get into it, particularly at the end of the 6th episode. I want to be clear that I'm not diagnosing. I don't know what's happening here. It's all edited. This could all be faked. I could be reading it wrong. Even if I were deciding to diagnose, I don't have enough information to go off of. But as a professor and a supervisor, it is very frustrating for us to try to explain to our trainees, to our students, to our therapists, about certain concepts of personality and behavior and communication, personality disorders. It's really hard to really explain what these disorders are. We're often reading the symptom list, maybe providing a vignette. Sometimes in my class, I'll show a fictional movie like Revolutionary Road, for example, with Kate Winslet and Leo DiCaprio. But it's a fictional movie. It's not made for educational purposes. It's made for entertainment. And it's always kind of a stretch because the author is just inventing things. It's not an actual human reacting from actual traumas, relational traumas, reacting to actual stakes, So when I started watching reality TV 4 years ago on this channel, I have found that occasionally, very occasionally, these reality TV shows will provide me as an instructor, as a professor, really excellent data to show people, and I will at times. And I know some of you out there are professors yourself and will show it as well. Not to say that we're saying this is what actually is happening, but this is something that would look like something that would happen clinically, right? There's a huge gap there, and I'm not just saying that to avoid being sued. I actually believe that to be true. When you are a clinician and you work with people at the ground level for years and years, you understand, as I do, that people are very complicated. There's always a very rich story and personal, unique experience to everybody that cannot be gleaned by watching edited scenes in a reality TV show. So the kind of things that I get into in these 6 episodes are borderline personality disorder, preoccupied attachment to some extent, disorganized attachment. I get into communication, how to resolve conflicts. I suppose I get into avoidant attachment style as well. I get into a time when I lied to the cops. I also get into a lot of abuse because the way in which the popular culture talks about and thinks about abusive people is only one type of abusive person, one profile. And I want everyone to, if I told you that, women can be abusers too. I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, think, at least intellectually, sure, absolutely. why would it not be that case? But if you've never seen it or had it explained to you what it would look like, then you might intellectually understand it, but not really understand it. And I want people to really understand it, not so that anyone on the show is labeled with something or hated by the public or attacked online. Don't ever do that. Don't DM these people and yell at them or participate in the ridicule online. It's straight up bullying. It's not okay. That's not why I do it. Why I do it is because you will come across these people. You might have these people in your life right now. You might have had them in your past. You might actually even be one of these people who are abusive. And I want to make the world a better place, and I believe through education, then that might be facilitated. Perhaps, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to do. So I decided early in this fight, I said, I'm just going to really go for it. I'm going to provide a lot of angles, a lot of my passion. You could argue that this is the core of who I am. When I die and they decide for whatever reason to highlight some content of mine as quintessential me or core to me, at this point, I think these 6 episodes are those episodes, is that content. It represents so many things about me, so many things about my professional life, what I'm passionate about. It's not the only thing that I do professionally, but it represents what I do well, because I get passionate about it. I get into it. I get emotional, and I, at the same time, will say that's a problem, what that person is doing. I'm also saying, and that person deserves so much love and so much of our care. They're not doing it because they are choosing to do it. They're not doing it because they set out to do it. They are having a reaction based on relational trauma that is well understood and has been well understood in my field for almost 100 years. And the way these kinds of things are talked about online is upsetting to me, even among clinicians, people will say, throughout my career. And I hope that you're okay, that the next 6 episodes will just be about this scene, and you'll be okay with the fact that each episode is kind of an odd length. What I decided to do was I decided to put major story beats at the beginning of each episode. So that's why the episodes are kind of in strange lengths. What I'm going to do after recording this intro is I'm actually going to watch season 2 of Love is Blind and compare and contrast Nick and Danielle, their presentation, to Jimmy and Chelsea. Not as a way of ridiculing them or anything or labeling them, but just personally, I'm just curious because it's been years since I watched that, but I keep remembering details that are similar. The reason why I want to do that is just because I'm personally curious, but the reason why I want to post it is that I want to further the understanding that this is not something that's particular to these individuals. This is something that is very, very common. It's a very, very common thing. And there's a spectrum. You can have people that are mild this personality disorder or moderate or severe. Often online, you'll hear people talk about the severe, which is fine. But if you're moderate and maybe just a little subclinical, meaning that you wouldn't actually qualify for the label in the DSM, it's not a demarcation line where above that line you're a problem and below the line you're not. Anywhere on that spectrum, you're going to have distress and difficulty and cause a lot of problems for yourself and other people. Not because you're a jerk face, but because of well understood attachment disruption reactivity. So I want to say all that, and the next number of days will just be this fight, and let me know what you think in the comments. Let's watch.
Who I want to spend my life with.
Mm-hmm. So I was so cranky with you this morning. I was like, man, I was so mad at him, but I love him with all my heart. Like, I love you.
She says she was so cranky with him this morning, and she says, but I love him. I love you so much. Normally, I would think this is just a good conversation about regular kinds of things, but given what we've seen before, Yeah. Both of the fights, she starts with either the cutesy voice there, which isn't a bad thing. It's nice to be cutesy. Softens the blow or just your way. But it either is that voice or it's more relaxed or more kind of fun. People have been talking about over the years this concept of the cool girl, right? This notion of women who will feel that they need to suppress who they really are and act like they're totally cool with whatever the guy wants to do, whether it's be polyamorous or play video games all day, meaning that the woman is not really wanting to do that. And she will act like she's super cool, either on purpose or subconsciously out of desperation or something. And I think maybe for some, they might look at Chelsea as a candidate for that. Jimmy was talking about AD's body, and then she's just like, yeah, everything's fine. And then clearly later she was not fine with it. There's also a chance that at the party with AD and the body and all that stuff, that Chelsea actually was generally okay with it, but just got locked in on it later because of her baseline transference issue that's happening. Anyway, so normally I would be thinking, it's just a regular conversation, but this could literally be step 1 out of 20 that leads to them escalating. I hope not, but like I said right from the beginning of their first fight, I said, we've seen this before on the show. We saw it between Nick and Danielle. And at some point, I actually want to compare these two as a demonstration. I also kind of want to get into the concepts that I'm revolving around more explicitly, and I sort of refer to them. And I think this is potentially such a good example that I can really kind of get into the weeds, not the weeds, but I could get specific, but I don't know. So I'm hoping for the best, but I am bracing for the worst.
Love you too, but you
Babe,
can't
last night,
you can't be cranky at me.
I can be cranky with you.
That was the most reasonable thing
Babe.
for me to do.
The camera crew leaves and you shower and get ready to go.
I asked you to go out, and I know that.
You did not ask me.
Okay, again, normally I'd be thinking, they're both lightly talking about it. This is a good tone to have as you're trying to communicate. But pretty quickly, honestly, she is escalating, which is a pattern so not only Nick and Danielle from season 2 and this couple, but I have seen this dynamic, and what I am hypothesizing what's going on here, I've seen this happen so many times in my office, and these couples I will treat for several years. And I've treated a lot of people that fit his profile in individual therapy and her profile in individual therapy. It was an early specialty of mine that I learned, trial by fire. I had a client early in my career, I'm 27 and fresh out of graduate school and flying by the seat of my pants. And I had a client that wasn't exactly like her, but was, I think, similar in terms of schemas and relational traumas and reactivity. And it was an intense experience that I learned a lot from. A lot of who I am today as a human, but also as a clinician, the stuff I yammer about, my point of view, was formulated during that time. So I have a lot to say about this, and already have said a lot about it, but I feel like this could be almost like a graduate level course on how to see this sort of thing. Often as a professor, I'm describing things and I don't have a good example to show, or the examples I have are actors, because you can't, it's hard to ethically film clients, but apparently it is no problem at all to just film people who might actually be exhibiting some of the very obvious signs of things that we talk about in graduate school. But anyway, so specifically what we're hearing is she's saying he went out.
That was the most reasonable
Babe.
for me to do.
The camera crew leaves and you shower and get ready to go.
I asked you to go out, and I know that
You did not ask me.
it was one of my friend's birthdays.
You didn't ask me to.
Okay, so she's highlighting that the camera crew leaves. What does that have to do with it to her? I don't know, but it kind of sounds like she thinks as soon as no one's around holding you home, then you bolt. Because it'd be another thing if she just said, last night you left. But, she's highlighting as soon as the camera crew leaves. And then he says it was a birthday party or a birthday get-together or something. And he says, I asked you to go. And she says, no, you did not. Okay.
Go with you. You did not.
I knew damn well you did not want to go with me, one. And I did ask you.
You didn't.
I did ask you. I was like, you can go with me. You were already bundled up.
Right. So given previous fights about these kinds of details, I would put my money down that Jimmy is actually more accurate to the story. He could be misremembering. He could be lying. I think given his presentation, if this isn't true, then I'd put my money down on him just misremembering. Plus, do we think that Jimmy, unless they had a huge fight, which it doesn't sound like that was the case, do we think that he would just like ditch her, just walk out the door while she's like, don't leave me, unless it's a fight. But if it wasn't a fight, then yeah, I'm sure that he must have at least asked her. Now, maybe he was thinking, he wasn't super enthusiastic about her coming or something. But anyway, so let's imagine that he did say, do you want to come? And he's also saying, I knew damn well that you wouldn't want to come. Is that because she doesn't like to socialize, or she was tired? What was it?
You did not have any desire to go with me, and I don't blame you. I was gone for an hour. I went and had one drink.
You were gone a very short time, so I will give you that.
An hour? Usually, in contrast to Jeremy, I'm thinking, oh boy, are we looking at another 5:30? Did he meet up with Jess? What's happening? So, and what time did she say? Let me rewind.
Babe, last night.
You can't be cranky at me.
I can be cranky with you.
That was the most reasonable.
Okay, so I'm rewinding it, and he's like, you can't be cranky with me. And she says, I can be cranky. Normally, again, I would think cranky is just mildly a little cranky, maybe cutesy cranky or whatever. But given what we've seen, it could have been fairly hostile cranky. So he is bringing that up, and it's good to see that he's advocating. I don't know if he's being fair. I'm guessing that he at least is in the direction of fair. And then she says, I can be cranky. I don't know what she means by that, but in line with what I was saying before about abuse can take many forms, and someone can be abusive without the other person feeling abused. That needs to be clear. Someone can be abusive to me, and if I'm differentiated enough, I have enough support, I see it as it is, there's a chance that I won't feel underneath their boot, that I won't feel harmed, that I won't feel afraid, that I won't feel in danger. I'll be saying, oh, they're either trying to make me feel afraid, or they're having an overreactivity and they're resorting to some sort of defense. And if I don't hold on to my differentiation, I will start to be afraid, and I will start to feel like I need to appease them or something. So I want to be clear about that, but I just want to put that short little phrase in that column of evidence that there's a mindset that she has, that she resorts to a pattern when she is threatened, attachment-wise. And I'll say this again as well, that in my experience, and I learned this through experience, no one ever taught me this, by the way. And I don't hear a lot of people, if anybody, really talking in this way. So that makes me suspicious about this whole point of view. But for abusive people, there's a set of them that are the way that people typically talk about them, where they wake up in the morning and literally say, I'm going to abuse this person. Or they start a relationship saying, okay, I have to hold back my abusive behavior because they're not going to take it. If I have to suck them in, and then I'll abuse them. Certainly there are people like that, but in my experience, it's pretty rare. I mean, we're talking about a psychopath, someone who preys on other people and enjoys it, a sadist. The vast majority of abusers that I treated who were court mandated because they committed a crime of domestic violence and they were ordered by the court to attend the treatment program that I was a part of, I would work with these people, and it was hard, 'cause literally none of them wanted to be there and thought that they had committed a crime. All of them thought that they were being treated unfairly. All of them thought that it was no big deal. All of them thought that their partner was really the abusive one. And we would look into it. We would talk to the partner periodically. And of course, we would talk to the individual. We'd look at the police report, all that kind of stuff. And 99 times out of 100, we would conclude, no. The right person was convicted of this. Plus, court, juries, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, do wrong things happen in court? Yeah. But, anyway, so what I learned was that all of them that I came across, and then subsequently in my private practice, I would treat abusers as well, perpetrators, they all have massive attachment insecurity and learned or developed this pattern of retaining attachment security through control and what we would call abuse. And they are operating from this desperation of retaining an attachment. They don't set out to abuse, they set out to retain attachment like everyone else does. But instead of having other kinds of behaviors that are based on trust and self-awareness and emotional regulation, they have a set of behaviors that are available to them that are coercive, domineering, controlling, harmful. And they don't know it in the moment. They're not thinking, I'm trying to tear this person down. To them, it feels rational to them. It feels like it's commensurate with the situation. Like, I don't know if they're going here, but they're talking about him last night having gone out with his friends for an hour. For most people, as long as it is the way that it looks that he just went out with his friends, for most people they would, even if they were kind of hurt, they'd be like, I just kind of wanted to spend some time with you last night. And on a scale from 1 to 10 about hurt, it might be a 2 or a 3. But for people that have these kinds of traumas, the 2 or a 3, or even if it's a 1 to most people, it'll feel like a 8 or a 9, maybe even a 10. So to give it an analogy for typical people, for people without this condition, it would be as if he had cheated and cheated for a month. If your partner cheated on you for a month behind your back and just didn't even apologize for it, you discover it and they're just like, yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to be a 10, right? You're going to feel very, very hurt. And in the moment that you find out about it and they're just denying it or they're acting like it's no big deal, there's a lot of possible understandable reactivity from the victim, from you, right? I'm just trying to think if I were in that situation, I could imagine saying, I can't believe you did that to me. I can't believe you have no heart. You are a psychopath. I'd probably start diagnosing from in that moment. It's not right, but it is. It makes sense given how I think, and I suppose things that are available to me. Therapists do that, by the way. It's not a good look, but meaning that therapists, when they're in a conflict with their partners, will naturally try to pull the therapist card and say, "Well, I'm the expert, and so you got to listen to me." It's usually not a good or a fair thing to do. Anyway, so I don't know. It's hard for me to know what I do, but we could imagine someone getting, pretty livid, right? Screaming, I can't believe you did this, storming out, I don't know, tweeting about it. That isn't uncommon. I don't recommend that. But whereas for people with the condition I'm hypothesizing that she suffers from, the minor hurt of him going out with his friends for an hour could feel like a 10, and thus the reaction to it will be a 10, even though it's only a 1 or a 2, right? And then that reaction is like getting back to that first scenario where, say I find out that someone cheated for a month, and they're actually asking me, hey, I don't want to break up. Please please don't break up with me. And I'm just like, well, if you want to make this work, then you have to give me all your passwords, because something like that, right? Or you're going to have to share your location with me, or you can't go out with those friends anymore, because as a temporary measure of if you really want to show me that you really want to work on this relationship, then you're going to start making some sacrifices until I trust you again. So that looked through one lens is controlling of me, right? To say you can't do these sets of things, I am, it's an ultimatum of a sense, but I think most people would agree. We could debate the wisdom of that, but we wouldn't look at that and say like, well, what an unreasonable partner to ask for the passwords or demand the passwords. Like you could see the person in my position saying, look, unless you give me the passwords, then we're done. If you really want our work, give me the passwords so that I can see your DMs moving forward. I don't need to see what happened in the past, but I do need to see what's going forward, because I can't trust you. But if it's only a 2, like you just went out for an hour, then people with this condition will feel like it's a 10, and they were modeled something or they learned something that, because, for some people, when it's a 10, they bolt, right? But for these people, they lean in and control. And so even though it's a 2, and I don't think she'll do this in this situation, but, specifically, but the drastic measure could be resorted to, something in that category of telling him, I must have all your passwords. You left last night for an hour. I need all your passwords, even though there's no reason to think that drastic level of reaction, of control, is commensurate with the situation. So that is what I saw as what most abusive people were operating from. It would look different. Sometimes it was violent, sometimes it was quiet, sometimes it was loud, sometimes it was more emotional, sometimes it was verbal, sometimes it was more gaslighting. Sometimes they would threaten to involve other people, or there would be triangulation of the kids or something. There was a lot of different specific behaviors, but it was all operating from that place, and it was all abuse.
I asked you to go out, and I know that.
You did not ask me.
It was one of my friend's birthdays.
You didn't ask me to go with you. You did not.
I knew damn well you did not want to go with me, one, and I did ask you.
You didn't.
I did ask you. I was like, you can go with me. You were already bundled up. You did not have any desire to go with me, and I don't blame you.
Okay, so there's more context. I was wondering if that was the case. That was one of the things I thought. And okay, so if she refutes that, then we'll have some questions. But if she doesn't, then once again, as with other fights they've been in, she will say something that he will say, well, wait, no. Like when she says, you haven't kissed me today, and he runs over, kisses her. And then he says, well, wait, no, I did kiss you twice a day. And she didn't refute that. But for people with this condition, they either think they have to exaggerate to be paid attention to, which actually shoots them in the foot, or their brain will actually rework memories to fit how they feel it happened.
I was gone for an hour. I went and had one drink.
You were gone a very short time, so I will give you that. But
it was more of driving.
Girls in the Pods said, hey, your man's is out. Where are you?
We see her face changing. I didn't land on a good screen there. So that might be the key right there, that if is that what you write? We'll rewind that, but she said the other women in the pods knew he was out. So were other women in the pods at this party? That wouldn't make any sense, because he's meeting up with, unless one of the friends that had a birthday was one of the other guys on the show, and then the other women were there. So I don't know. But let's assume he's only gone for an hour. So what could have happened. And she did say, I'll grant you that. You were gone for a short time. Okay. Now, maybe there's something Jimmy did that was legit. I don't know. So we'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll hear if there is something. But for her, it's possible that he left and she was like slightly triggered, right? And then someone calls and says, hey, I know that he's out. How come you're not with him? And it highlights that feeling, or it highlights the, like she's on the fence. She's holding on. She's like, he's just going to go out for a little bit. It's a birthday party. Everything's fine. I'm bummed. I didn't want to go. I could have gone, but I don't want to go. And everything's going to be everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Hold it together. You get this call, and it's like, see, that's what I'm talking about. He shouldn't have left, and it just in her mind anyway. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that.
I was gone for an hour. I went and had one drink.
You were gone a very short time, so I will give you that. But
it was more of driving.
Girls in the pods said, hey, your man's is out. Where are you? That was more embarrassing. That was embarrassing.
I didn't see anybody. I didn't talk to anybody last night.
And then she says it's embarrassing. What's embarrassing about it? If my wife was out and people called me and said, I know your wife is out with friends. How come you're not with her? I'd be like, what? Why are you calling? What? What's it to you? And it's like where does that question even come from? Why would you call her and say, how come you're not with him? Like, but okay, someone calls me, I would say, I decided not to go, or she literally didn't invite me because she doesn't want me there because she's hanging out with her friends. How about that?
Yeah, but they saw you, so.
Who's they?
Mackenzie.
I don't even know what Mackenzie looks like.
She knows what you look like.
Okay, I seem to remember Mackenzie being one of the others in the pods. I wrote down the names of the people, and Mackenzie. We saw a short interview with her, so Mackenzie was the one probably that called her, and apparently Mackenzie was at the place that he was at, and okay, so is that it? That Mackenzie just happened to be at the same place, or was Mackenzie part of the friend? I don't know. Let's watch.
Oh.
But I wasn't out hanging out with other girls from the pod.
I think all the girls are.
Right. And then he said, I don't even know what Mackenzie looks like, because although I met her in the pods, was she there? And then she didn't really refute that. So that sounds like Mackenzie, just saw him, that he wasn't with Mackenzie and others. Okay.
Like, why is he out and you're not with him? I'm like, man, girl, your girl wants to go to bed.
Exactly. Why are you hammering me?
Yeah. He had the same reaction. Exactly. So, right. Why are you hammering me about it? And why were you grumpy the whole time? And why are we talking about it right now? I'm with my friends for an hour. He even said most of the time he was gone was driving, which really points to, unless it's a work night or something, school night, or he doesn't really like those friends, but I'm guessing that left to his own devices, he probably would have stayed longer. Why would you, drive 25 minutes to stay 15 minutes and then drive 25 minutes home? But anyway, so she claims that when Mackenzie called, says, how come he's out without you? She says that she said to Mackenzie, I'm tired. That's why I'm not there. Okay. End of story, right? But no, and I don't blame her at all. I sound frustrated. It can be frustrating to have a friend or a partner like this. It can be frustrating to have a client like this. And I don't know what this is. I don't even know if I'm seeing it accurately. But at the very least, we can say that there's a fair amount of preoccupation, right? Now, there's a good chance, not a good chance, sorry. There is a slight chance that there are a lot of really horrible things happening behind the scenes that Jimmy is doing to her, and she's reacting from that. It certainly doesn't look that way, but I can never know. But anyway, at the very least, we can say there's a fair amount of significant preoccupied attachment, anxious attachment, and it can be hard, working and especially being in a relationship with someone like that. There's a lot of paranoia and assumption and blame and criticism and anger and overreactivity. It's hard enough to be in a relationship. It's really on another level when, and the same goes for avoidant attachment too, but avoidant attachment can just be more hurtful than frustrating, I guess. And certainly being with a preoccupied person could be very hurtful. Preoccupied people are just more noticeable. I'll just put it that way. And when it comes to disorganized and fearful attachment, that's a whole other thing. But I need to stop acting like I'm frustrated or feeling frustrated and exhibiting it, because she's not doing this by choice. I definitely believe that. She is operating from her traumas, and it's the only thing she knows. Now, as always, we can say, given the awareness of mental health services and therapy and whatnot, we can hold her responsible for doing what she can to address this. And I did hear from my contact that worked on the show that Chelsea is working very hard in therapy and enjoying it now. I don't know if it sounded like it might have happened after the show. And my contact with the show told me that the show actually helped connect the cast, a number of people on the cast, to therapists and paid for a portion of it. I would like to see the show pay for all of it because they make a lot of money, but what are you going to do? And so maybe Chelsea is in the beginning of her recovery. I really, really hope so. So, maybe this is just the normal course of that sort of thing. The vast majority of people that do suffer from her issue that she is exhibiting, which I don't know if she actually is suffering from, do not go to therapy at all and continue to suffer themselves mostly and cause a lot of suffering around them. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really do.